Hello, my name is Trevor Owens, and I'm going to be joined today by Lila Hanks and Ryan Novak. And we're going to do a presentation on the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, more commonly known as HSBC. So some of the things we'll be covering today include the history and background of the bank, scandals, the structure of the organization, the new plans and initiatives of the future, the diversity programs they have in place, and we'll also be including our currency trading with Rwanda. So first off, I'll be going over the history and background of the institution. So how did HSBC come to fruition? So it was founded in 1865 by Thomas Sutherland. An interesting thing about Sutherland was he had little to no experience in the banking industry. However, he was a savvy businessman, and he saw that international trade was picking up in his region. So he took this opportunity. He knew that local farmers, local workers needed a trustworthy and reliable bank. So he incorporated HSBC in 1865 in Hong Kong. This wouldn't come without struggles, however. Only 1 year later after incorporation in 1866, a series of bank runs would put the bank in jeopardy. At the time, Hong Kong's financial stability depended heavily upon international commodity markets. And during that time, the Civil War was going on in the US, so it caused uncertainty about US cotton production. And the uncertainty touched off a trade depression, which was compounded by fluctuations in the price of silver and a recession in the Bombay financial market. However, this wouldn't come without a silver lining. HSBC earned the nickname Wei Fung, which means focus of wealth, and it also earned the respect of the local people for its resilience for making it through this tough time. Also, during this tough time, 6 of Hong Kong's 11 foreign banks closed down. After a brief period of expansion following the bank runs of 1866, they would face more hard times. So World War I was the first big event they faced, and during World War I, it wasn't just about the survival of the bank, it was also about the survival of the employees working at the banks as well. So during this time, 40 out of 169 of HSBC's employees from the bank's London office who had joined British forces died during the war. So following the war, the Great Depression took place. The bank's inner reserves were drawn down during this time, and bonuses for employees were cut, and shareholder dividends were reduced. These moves would later prove vital in keeping HSBC afloat. So what took place after that was World War II. So the Japanese army began advancing into Hong Kong, which resulted in HSBC having to move its main office to London. Also, it forced them to shut down most of its network in Asia. After World War II, the main office got moved back from London to Hong Kong, and they began to expand. So it accumulated over 170 offices across the globe, and the city had become one of the world's most important financial centers, and foreign banks arrived to tap into the booming stock market. So in response to that, HSBC created an investment banking subsidiary in 1972. Another big move was also that HSBC bought the American bank Marine Midland. This move would put HSBC on path to become a truly global bank. And after cementing itself in Asia, the Middle East, and the US, it set its eyes on Europe, given that this would be the final puzzle piece to resulting in globalization. So in 1992, this would occur. HSBC purchased the UK's Midland Bank, and it became a truly global bank. Also, something pretty interesting that happened in the UK was the UK Banking Reform Act in 2018. So HSBC renamed the Midland Bank to HSBC UK. This was because the Banking Reform Act required the largest UK banks to separate their core services from their investment and international banking services. So the act was passed due to the global financial crisis of 2008. It aims to combat the idea that banks are too big to fail by making banks safer, and it reduces the impact on the taxpayer and the economy if a large investment bank were to fail in the future. So something a little bit more recent. So In 2017, the group chairman, the chief executive of wealth management and retail banking, and the head of commercial banking all changed heads from the end of 2017 to the beginning of 2020. And this was in large part due to a lot of controversy surrounding HSBC, which stemmed from a lot of scandals that were going on, which I will touch on soon. And also, HSBC is currently focusing on Asia, and it's continued to shut down branches in the US and Britain. It's looking to completely shut down in the US because it's been underperforming for a while in the US, and it's also shutting down a lot of branches due to the move to the online platform and online banking services. So it just kind of become unnecessary to have these branches in certain locations. Up next, I'll be discussing some of the scandals that HSBC was involved in. So in 2003 and 2010, US regulators penalized HSBC for lackluster monitoring of suspicious transactions. And unfortunately, this would be a recurring theme. So in 2012, charges from the US authorities were brought on the bank for a money laundering scheme. This would be a record-breaking fine that was imposed on HSBC. It'd be $1.9 billion that HSBC would have to pay. So what took place during this scheme was money laundering for Mexico's Sinaloa cartel in Colombia's Norte de Valle, which they ran $881 million through HSBC. In response to this, HSBC claimed they didn't really know what was going on, but something else that was kind of suspicious was HSBC had Mexico in its lowest risk category, and this is where a lot of the money laundering was taking place, was HSBC Mexico. Actually, authorities obtained a voice recording of a Mexican drug lord saying HSBC Mexico was a place to go to launder money. So they had Mexico in its lowest risk category, even though it's known for corruption. In doing so, it excluded $670 billion from the monitoring system. So it just seems a little fishy. Some of the repercussions that stemmed for that were incorporating better monitoring systems for suspicious transactions, more controllers, but it also resulted in a deferred prosecution agreement, which meant as long as they agreed to these terms and abided by them for a certain amount of time, no one would go to jail. And I mean, that would be that. So as of right now, the deferred prosecution agreement is up, and they serve no more backlash or no more repercussions from the laundering scheme. So no one ended up going to jail for all that. And here's a little image to kind of showcase that. So you have Uncle Sam holding up the $1.9 billion fine, saying you've laundered money for terrorists and drug cartels. Yeah, all we can do is fine you. And you have the big HSBC head of honcho laying in cash saying, hey, we're too big to jail, which turned out to be true. So some more scandals that took place was in 2015, a whistleblower alleged the bank was profiting from doing business with corrupt politicians, dictators, tax evaders, dealers of blood diamonds, and arms dealers. And in 2017, HSBC was one among 17 banks that allegedly helped the KGB launder money out of Russia. And it was alleged that it was $500 million that was ran through HSBC. So all these things are what resulted in the turnover of executives from 2017 to 2020. And the 2015 and 2017, nothing has come, no sanctions have come. It's kind of just alleged allegations as of right now. But you can see it's kind of a continuing theme that their lackluster monitoring systems for suspicious transactions seems a little convenient. So yeah, that's the end of the scandals.